Good morning, students. Today's topic is liberalization. This topic's objectives is to solve India's impending balance of payment crisis, to boost the private sector's participation in the development of India's economy, to increase the volume of foreign direct investment in India's businesses, to introduce competition between India's democratic businesses, to examine India's economic potential by encouraging multinational and private companies to expand to users to in globalization for the Indian economy, to regulate, export and import and promote foreign trade. And the object and the introduction of this topic, the industrial policy was announced on July 24th, 1991 by the government headed by Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao. The new industrial policy NIP was a big departure from the erstwhile industrial policy. The important objectives are the key objective of industrial policy was rapid industrialization of the country to maintain sustained growth in the productivity and gainful employment and to attain international competitiveness. Therefore, the basic philosophy of the new IP 1991 has been the continuity with change. And the term liberalization denotes removing restrictions from certain private individual activity, typically pertaining to economic system. Commonly, liberalization is used in the context the context of a government relaxing its previously imposed restrictions on economic or social politics. And the next is the these changes pertain broadly to five areas with industrial licensing, public sector policy, MRTP Act 1969, foreign investment and foreign technology agreements. The new government assumed office in June 1991. It made a decision to organize sale of gold. The exchange rate of the rupee was as adjusted and massive devaluation of the rupee was carried against major currencies to improve the trade and payment situation. In this situation, India needed major economic overhauling. And the Next is liberalization refers refers to relaxation. Relaxation of previous government restrictions, usually in areas of social and economic policies. Thus, when government liberalize trade, it means it has removed the tariff, subsides, and other restrictions on the flow of goods and services between country. And the reason of implementation reason of implementing LPG, various distortion like poor technological development, storage of foreign exchanges, and imprudent borrowings from abroad and mismanagement of foreign exchange reverse. Law Low foreign exchange reverses burden of national debate, inflation, and an introduction of liberalization. The introduction of liberalization, the economic liberalization in India refer to ongoing economic reforms in India that started on 24 July 1991. After independence 1947, India adhered to socialistic policies. In the 1980s, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi initiated some reforms in 1991 after India faced a balance of payments crisis. It had to sell 67 tons of gold to the International Monetary Fund, that is called IMF, International Monetary Fund, as part of a ballet deal and promise economic restricting. The government of P.V. Narasimha Rao and his finance minister Manmohan Singh, the present prime minister, started breakthrough reforms and the introduction economic liberalization re- refers to a situation where initial restrictions and control are removed from a country's economy to ensure that businesses and enterprises can maximize their contribution. It is, however, important to note that liberalization does not mean an uncontrolled economy, and that the economic liberalization in India, the Indian economy was liberalized in the year 1991 in India. The concept of economic liberalization was introduced to attain several objectives: industrialization, expansion in the role of private foreign investment, and introducing a free market system. Restrictions were relaxed, for private companies to enter several core industries which were previously reversed for public sector. And the next is the new liberal policies included opening for international trade and investment, deregulation, initiation of privatization, tax reform, and inflation controlling measures. The main objective of the government was to transform the economic system from socialization, socialism to capitalism, so as to achieve high economic growth and industrialize the nation for the well being of Indian citizens. Today, India is mainly characterized as a market economy. And these the arise the question, why was liberalization initiated in India? Economy liberalization in India was bolstered by its balance of payments crisis in 1985. This crisis rendered the country incapable of paying for its essential imports and servicing. Its debate payments India was pushed to the brink to bankruptcy. Therein, as a response to it, the then Finance Minister of India, Dr. Manmohan Singh, introduced economic liberalization in India. And the next is the meaning of liberalization. Liberalization of the economy means to free it from direct or physical controls imposed by the government. Economic reforms were based on the assumption that market forces could guide the economy in a more effective manner than government control. Examples of one of the other undeveloped countries like Korea, Thailand, Singapore, etc., that had achieved rapid economic development. As a result of liberalization, were kept in consideration. And the next is what made India to liberalize a balance of payments crisis in 1991, which pushed the country to near bankruptcy. The rupee devalued and economic reforms were forced upon India. India's central bank had refused new credit, and foreign exchange reversed has reduced to the point that India could barely finance 3 weeks worth of imports. These are the liberalization in the balance of payments. And the next is the future of liberalization in India. Following are some of the features of liberalization that was initiated as a part of economic reform of 1991. And the next is reforms taken during liberalization, abolition of industrial licensing and registration, liberalizing the MRTP Act, freedom for expansion and production, increase in the investment limit of the small industries, freedom to import capital goods, freedom to import technology, predetermination of interest rate, and the impact impact of these reforms. These reforms in impact us. First, the average annual growth of services shifted to 8.1% during 1991 to 2001 from 6.9% during 1981 1991, a rate of growth that will double average income in a decade. Rapid growth in communication services, financial services, business services, and community services. Exports of information technology enabled services particularly strong. In the future, the abolition of the previously existing license Raj in the country. And license or permit Raj is a complicated system of regulations, license and restrictions that were imposed to run and set up businesses between 1947 and 1990. Reduction of interest rates and traffic tariffs, curbing monopoly of the public sector from various areas of our economy. Approval of foreign direct investment in various sectors and economic liberalization in India integrated the above features and in general weight of to several restrictions to be become more private sector friendly. And the impact of these reforms, these are the impact when it comes to discussing impact of liberalization. It is crucial to look at both the positive and negative ramifications on our country's economy. And the next is the introduction license. Licen- Licensings, industrial licensings is governed by Industries Development and Regulation Act 1951. It is a very effective tool used by the government to regulate the private sector. It abolished all industrial licensing irrespective of the security and strategic concern, social reasons, concerns related to safety and ordering environment issues. Manufacture of product of hazardous nature and articles of allied consumption, and the industrial licensing, and next the later. This list was trimmed, and as of now license is required only for 6 items listed in annexure. Second, these are follows. First of all, distillation and brewing of alcoholic drinks, cigars, and cigarettes, of tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitutes, electronic, aerospace, and defense equipment, industrial explosives, including detonating fuse, safety fuse, gunpowder, nitrocellulose, and matches, hazardous chemicals, drug and pharmaceutical. And next, the public sector. The public sector, the statement of industry policy 1991 reduced the list of industries reversed for the public sector to 8 from 70, and further for more area where they reserve, received, which trimmed the list of 4. And public sector monopoly was limited only for 8 industries of security and strategic relevance. This was also later trimmed, and only railways, arms, and ammunitions and allied items of defense equipments, defense aircrafts, and warships, atomic energy minerals specified in the schedule to the atomic energy remained personality. Presently, only two sectors are under public sector monopoly: atomic energy and railway transport. And the various sector, industry and services. Industry accounts for a 28% of the GDP and employ 14% of the total workforce. The Indian industrial sector underwent significant changes as a result of the economic reforms of 1991, which removed import restrictions, brought in foreign competitions, led to privatization of certain public sector industries. And the next is the India is 13th in service output. The services sector provides employment to 23% of the workforce and is growing quickly with the growth rate of 7.5% in 1991 to 2000, up from 4.5% in 1951 to 1980. Even sectors like insurance, which were earlier reserved for public sector, were not only opened for private sector. When foreign investment was allowed up to 26% under the 1997 WTO Financial Services Agreement. India is committed to permit 12 foreign bank branches annually. And next in this picture, annually growth in number of companies, government companies and non-government companies. In this picture, we see the two types of companies in there, and the next is the 100% foreign investment is permitted in information technology units set up exclusively for export. 100% of FDI is all allowed in e-commerce. Automatic approval is allowed for foreign equity in software and almost all area of electronic. And the next is the agriculture. Agriculture, India ranks second worldwide in farm output. Agriculture and allied sectors like forestry, logging, and fishing accounted for 15.7% of the GDP in 2009 to 10, employed 52.1% of the total workforce. Yield per unit area of all crops have grown since 1950 due to the special emphasis placed on agriculture in the 5-year plans and steady improvements in irrigation technology, application of modern agriculture practices, and provision of agricultural credit and subsidies since the Green Revolution in India. And in India is the largest producer in the world of milk, jute, and pulses, and also has the world's second largest cattle population with 175 million animals in 2008. It is the second largest producer of rice, wheat, sugarcane, cotton, and groundnuts, as well as the second largest fruit and vegetable producer, accounting for 10.9% and 8.6% of the world fruit and vegetable production, respectively. And the next is banking and finance. In the area of banking and finance, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi nationalized 14 banks in 1969, followed by six others in 1980, and made it mandatory for banks to provide 40% of their net credit to priority sectors like agriculture, small scale industry, retail trade, small businesses, etc., to ensure that the banks fulfill their social and development goals. Since then, the number of bank branches has increased from 8,260 in 1969 to 72,170 in 2007, and the population covered by a branch decreased from 63,800 to 15,000 during the same period. And the India's gross domestic saving in 2006 to 2007 as a percentage of GDP stood at a high 32.7%, more than half of personal savings are invested in physical assets such as land, houses, cattle, and gold. The public sector banks hold over 75% of total assets of the banking industry with the private and foreign banks holding 18.2% and 6.5% respectively. Since liberalization, the government has approved significant banking reforms, and the MRTP Act 1969, MRTP Act 1969, the New Industrial Policy 1991 proposed to amend suitably the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1969. MRTP can be divided into four parts: monopolistic practice, restrictive trade practice, unfair trade practice, and controlling the concentration of economic power. Principal objectives of MRTP Act are as under: prevention of concentration of economic power and control of monopolies, prohibition of monopolistic, restrictive, and unfair trade practices. These are the MRTP Act lies, and these restrict growth of Indian industry and units like Tisco, Telco, and Hindelco and Renbaxi, which through having the capacity to become global players remained confined to India, producing substandard goods. And the 1991, the MRTP Act was restricted and pre-entry restrictions removed with respect to new undertaking, expansion, amalgamation, merger, merger, takeover, restriction, etc. These are the restricted the growth of Indian industry. And the foreign investment, the 1956 industrial policy expected the role of foreign equity. Since independence, we have always looked at foreign equity as some sort of economic slavery. But in last 50 years, the enormous under resultilization of resources, unemployment, poor infrastructure, and per- perceived property compelled the government to open the doors for foreign equity. And the next of the today's India welcomes foreign equity in almost every sector. In 1991, it allowed automatic approval for foreign equity participation up to 51% granted to high priority industries listed every annexer 4 Annexer 4 and the foreign trading companies are allowed to invest up to 51% in Indian trading house engaged in export e- activity. In hotel and tourism related industry, up to 51% foreign equity is allowed. And the next, even in the mining sector, foreign investment up to 50% was allowed. And this picture, the contribution of GDP, government companies and non-government companies. This is the rupee in crore and the year to 1993 to 2002, and the light color is denote to government companies and the non-government companies in the dark purple color. And the highest growth is the non-government companies, always to the contribution to GDP and per year. And the next, the foreign technology agreements. Foreign technology agreements, in the foreign technologies agreements, the new industry policy process to give automatic permission for foreign technology agreements in identified high priority industries. Further, it also process to allow other industries to import foreign technology, subject to the fulfillment of certain conditions. The RBI grants automatic approval by the means of the regional officers to Indian industries for foreign technology collaboration. The royalty period should not exceed 7 years from the date of starting of the business or 10 years from the date mentioned in the agreement. These are the foreign technology agreements. And the balance of payment since independence, India's balance of payments on its current account has been negative since economic liberalization in the 1990s, precipitated by a balance of payment crisis. India's exports rose constantly, covering 80.3% of its import in 2002 to 2003, up from 66.2% in 1990 to 1991. However, the global economic some followed by a general declaration in world trade, saw the exports as a percentage of imports drop of 61.4% in 2008 to 2009. And India's growing oil import bill is seen as the main driver behind the large current account deficit, which rose to $118.7 billion or 9.7% of GDP. In 2008 to 2009, between January and October 2010, India imported $82.1 billion worth of crude oil. India's reliance on external assistance and constitutional debate has decreased since liberalization of the economy, and the debate service ratio decreased from 35.3% in 1990 to 91 to 4.4% in 2008 to 2009. In India, external commercial borrowing or commercial loans from non resident lenders are being permitted by the government from providing an additional source of funds to Indian corporate. India's foreign source of exchange reserves have steadily risen from $5.8 billion in the market. And the next is conclusion. All the topic conclusion is this: the new industrial policy 1991 certainly differs significantly from the earlier philosophies, approaches, etc. of the government. For instance, prior to 1991, scope of public sector was expanded by reversing more number of industries for the public sector. But now its scope has been reduced drastically by reducing the number of industries reversed for the public sector. Likely this, a large number of changes can be noticed in the new policy. And this process has been continuing even this post liberalization era. Adding to this, the government has taken a number of steps to give effect to its policy decisions included in the new industrial policy 1991. Though the economy has been benefited significantly from these measures, the economy has not been able to reap the full benefits of the economic reforms package owing to the political instability, etc. These are the all about the topic liberalization. At the end of the topic, some references is there, and the end of this topic Some multiple choice questions is there. First question is eliminating government set restrictions or barriers is known as free trade, favorable trade, investment, liberalization. The answer is liberalization. And the next question, what does liberalization aim at? Socialistic pattern of society, economic planning, economic reforms, land reforms. What is the answer? The answer of this question is economic reforms is the right answer. And the next question, price resetting is the characteristics of which of the following? Monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, perfect competitive competition. The answer is oligopoly is the answer of this question. Next question dash refers to relaxation of produce government restriction usually in area of social and economic policies. First is privatization, globalization, disinvestment, and liberalization. The answer is liberalization is the right answer. And next question, FDI means forex direct investment, foreign de- deglate investment, foreign direct investment, and forex deregulated investment. The right answer of this question is foreign direct investment. And the next question, EFCG stand for export promotion capital goods, export programmer of credit generation, exchange programmer for consumer goods, export promotion consumer goods. The right answer is export promotion capital goods. And next question, EXIM policy was announced in the year 1990, 1992, 1995, and 1998. What is the right answer? The right answer of this question is 1992 is the right answer. And the next question, the foreign trade policy has identified certain thrust areas for growth, started served from India brand, started duty free export credit, all of the above. Right answer is all of the above. And next question, CIF stand for cost insurance freight, cost inclusive of freight, cost of freight, and cost interest freight. The answer is cost insurance freight. And the last question, and the end of the question, the foreign trade policy has identified certain thrust areas for growth, started served from India brand, started duty free export credit, all of the above. The answer of this question is all of the above. These are the questions for this topic. The end of the topic Thank you.